the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, July 31st, the last day of July 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, folks. This is a live broadcast. What you are about to hear tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is a rundown of the most important news, perhaps the most important news of the year. This program tonight, we are going to dissect or present to you not the fluff, not the diversions, not the fog of disinformation, not the Brian Williams, oh, am I so intellectual? No, none of that. Tonight we're just going to give you the raw and dirty. And let me just say this. I got an email from someone who said that it was Monday's program talking about the serial killer is too graphic. Well, let me just make a suggestion to that emailer. Turn off your radio tonight. Because you want to talk about graphic, folks. We have graphic, and it's not gratuitous violence graphic stuff. It is information that you need to know what is taking place across the Middle East, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in particular in Iraq, and by the very people who we have allowed to and trained and essentially given over the reins of power to. They are creating rivers of blood, literal rivers of blood. But folks, you're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look well beyond the headlines and bylines to bring you the news behind the headlines. For the new listeners, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Saturday, we have a weekend report. Very proud of that. Sheila Zielinski, weekend vigilante, joining us, well, actually, taking the tip of the spear on that. And fantastic program. So 6 days, ladies and gentlemen. And that's not enough by far to cover all of the news. Joe and I were talking before the program, and his research, I've just seen the back of his head pretty much all afternoon. That's it. And you could tell when he's on a roll. But our home base, folks, is HomelandSecurityUS.com, as well as, and folks, please make note of this, HagmannandHagmann.com. Pretty simple, right? Just spell the name Hagmann right, properly, that is. 2 N's, the word and. Spell that out. So HagmannandHagmann.com. There we are building a database of shows, past, present, and yes, future. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has supported us. Whether it's financial, cards, letters. Here, if you write a piece of or write a note on a napkin and send it in, we've read it. We have a wall here in our office. I should take a photograph of it. I haven't, because there are actual people have sent in pictures of themselves along with their family members and their dogs and their homes, and I feel it's private, so I haven't taken it, but it covers an 8-foot area, an 8-foot area. When we get down, self-pity, wallowing, and oh, woe is me, we look at that wall and we understand why we're doing things. It's because of you. It's because of all of you. And before I bring Joe on, folks, what we're trying to do is grow the program even more. Last year, 65 countries downloads, 64 million downloads, somewhere in that vicinity. Thing that we've heard from people is, it'd be nice to know, it'd be nice to be able to find a listener in my area. well, here's what we've done. I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know. We're not into marketing trinkets and stuff like that. That's not what we do. But what we've done, and Joe, pop on here and let's talk about this for a moment before we get into the hard news.
All right.
All right. What we've done is we've created a 3-inch round. Imagine the bottom of a soda can, except maybe a little bit bigger. About 3-inch round. It's a round or logo, and they're pretty recognizable, wouldn't you say, Joe? I mean, because you've got one on your vehicle, and Amanda, who helps us out, has one on her vehicle, and they're pretty recognizable. Okay.
Yeah, you got to get close to see what what it says. You pretty much have to be stopped behind somebody at a stop sign or a light. But if you know the logo, what's on HomelandSecurityUS.com, the logo of our dog, it's very recognizable. Yes.
Okay. Here's why I mentioned this, and then we'll get into the news, folks. If you go to Hagmann and Hagmann.com, and if you take a look at, if you hover your mouse over photos in the main menu, or on the right, you can click right to logos and bumper stickers. You can see what it is. It's a peel off kind of thing, and you can put it on your side window, your bumper, your back window, whatever you want to do. It's a little bit smaller than those European oval type things you see for airports. But what we thought, and here's what I thought. If you put one on your vehicle, perhaps, or wherever you might think, you can identify other listeners, other like-minded people. And I've already actually had distributed to some people in my hometown, and it's a pretty small, large hometown, or a big, small hometown, however you want to describe it. But the fact is people have been able to identify other listeners by that logo and introduce themselves. I was told that one person actually said, "Hey, you know what? I'm a listener too." And that might sound contrived, but it's not. So if you're interested, and I'm saying this only if you're interested, folks, send me an email. I'm not sure. We're not charging for these right now. I mean, it's unless we get like 20,000 requests, all at one time, where the postage would be, we'd have to mortgage our house. If you're in the continental United States, send me choose. There are 3 different kinds of bumper stickers. So if you're listening to this, choose the 1 or 2 or whatever, or the logo, whatever you'd like. Send me an email with in the subject line. I don't know. A bumper sticker, and I'll get one off to you. Now we're trying to send to those people who have helped us and sent us notes and books and things. We're trying to get those off concurrent with that. But if you're going to use it, and if you'd like to use it, just send me an email. No strings attached. We'll send you out 1 or 2 or whatever. If you own a business and want to have a 10 or 15 on the counter, we'll send them out to you, free of charge, no strings. But it's a way to get the brethren, I suppose, together. Joe, I don't know. Is that a good idea? What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
All right. So that's, I just wanted to start on a kind of a positive note, I suppose, because in these times we're going to need some sort of a wink and a nod, and kind of like, yeah, I listen to, and hey, you're like-minded. Maybe we should get together, or perhaps we could, exchange notes sometime. That kind of thing. It's just one way of expanding or identifying those. And of course, people might say, well, that's putting yourself out there and saying that you're making yourself a target. Well, then you know what? Don't ask for one then. Best I can do. So at any rate, Joe, we've got a lot of news to get into. Where do you start in something like this? when we're in this headline-rich environment. You've got Ebola, you've got rivers of blood in the Middle East. We've got all of these topics that we will get into very carefully to describe how everything is being done on schedule by a plan. And well, let's get into it.
Well, since
turn over to you.
News in 2 Minutes has had to take a few days off for reasons unknown. They're busy doing something else. I'm lost at where to start. I usually turn to what they put out and go from there. But since we don't have them, I guess we're going to have to do this on our own today. And we'll start in the Israel-Gaza conflict that has been raging for weeks now, as we have headlines out of the Free Beacon. Congressman tells John Kerry, to stop partnering with Hamas' top ally. Republican Peter Roskam, a Republican from Illinois, petitioning the State Department to release its close relationship with Qatar, which has served as Hamas's chief financial lifeline, while also enjoying close ties to the United States, which recently linked a $11 billion arms deal with the controversial country. Qatar has been designated by the State Department as a significant terrorist financing risk, and has emerged as a key player in recent efforts by Secretary of State John Kerry to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Well, today we have news that there has been a ceasefire, that 72-hour ceasefire, that the UN, the U.S., Israel, and Hamas are all involved, apparently, which I'm not too sure how or what the UN has to do with it, or the U.S. I know that Israel and Netanyahu has called for a ceasefire, only to be met with rockets in return. The conflict continues to intensify. 16,000 or more reserves have been called up from Israel again, and they're trying to destroy this mass tunnel network Hamas has put together, which allows them to launch rockets. Now, I think I remember talking about on air the missiles that were given to Hamas, which were found in a school, United Nations school in Gaza. Well, now it's happened a third time. 3 separate occasions, this school by the United Nations, put together by the United Nations in Gaza, has been caught with rockets, which they in turn hand over to Hamas.
And one of the important things about this is as well, just to interject, when we talk about Benghazi, the weapons running operation, a lot, folks, don't forget, just because, for example, weapons were dedicated or to be directed to be used in the Syrian toppling of Assad, there was a diversion program as well. A lot of these weapons, many of these weapons, wound up in the hands of Palestinians, of Arabs, and are being used against Israel as well, in addition to other avenues of supply. So this is very, so when we talk about Benghazi, we talk about Syria, we talk about Saudi Arabia, and our influence by Saudi Arabia, this is a big part of it. Go ahead, Joe. You're muted, by the way.
I'm looking yeah, I'm looking for the article. Okay. My Firefox on my laptop crashed here, so give me a minute. But the last report was, here we go. 3rd rocket arsenal found at UN school in Gaza. This latest article from Breitbart goes on to say that United Nations Relief Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, or UNRWA, announced Tuesday that another rocket stockpile has been found at one of the schools in Gaza. This instance marks the 3rd time since the beginning of Operation Protective Edge that a weapons arsenal has been found at a UNRWA school in Gaza. And it goes on to state that the UN has Oh, goodness. Sorry.
All right. Well, look,
I just got bombarded by ads from the Breitbart site. That's why I was trying to pull it up on my laptop. They were yelling in my ear. But no, this is the third time. And the UN, the State Department, has been backing up the UN in this instance, saying that there is no fault of their own. But we are seeing this conflict escalate, as well as the response around the world of anti-Semitism escalate, with thousands and tens of thousands protesting in Paris, in Turkey, in different cities. In New York, there were thousands of people protesting the other day against Israel's quote-unquote war crimes. You know, Americans won't even get off their butts to protest their own political injustices, but when it comes to Israel defending themselves and trying to take out the targets and the people that are causing them to have to duck and run for cover, multiple times a day over months and months and months. Thousands attended pro-Gaza march in Paris. This was a few days ago, but it says several of demonstrators marched Wednesday through Paris under the eye of hundreds of riot police, this time in illegal protest, with banners featuring slogans such as "Boycott Israel," "Israel is murder." Demonstrators tested a government grappling with how best freedom expression while containing violence and hate speech against France's Jews. Jewish leaders say vocal anti-Semitic chants in previous demonstrations and several attacks on synagogues reflect rising anti-Semitism in Europe. France and Western Europe's largest Jewish and Muslim populations in the Middle East conflict often means rocketing tensions in France. Today we are here for Palestine because we find Israel shameful, because children are dying, and it's unbelievable to see all this. In other news coming out of the Israel-Gaza conflict is the U.S. media. We see the media outlets here in the United States. Some say, they're defending Israel, but what they're doing is taking I see many sites, alternative sites, mainstream sites, comparing body counts like it's a competition, because Israel has killed more the Palestinians than Palestinians has killed Israelis, so it's unfair, it's unhumanitarianism. And I want to know from the people back when 9/11 happened who were calling for blood in this, calling for blood of all the people who were associated even with the people who did it. How is this any different? If you had rockets raining down on your city on a daily basis and you finally said enough is enough and went and defended yourself, would it be considered a war crime? No. We went over this, we've talked about this. It's just very frustrating to see the amount of anti-Semitism, the amount of calls of war crimes coming out against Israel for something, if other people were in their shoes, would be hopefully going with the same response, with defending themselves, with smoking out those who were responsible for launching rockets at them on a daily basis. And in an interesting twist, Putin met with an Israeli foreign minister and with President Netanyahu, saying he supports the struggle of Israel. And I don't know, if this is just political theater, if this is really how he feels, but he's saying he's standing with Israel in defense of their country. They have a right to defend themselves and their country against these terrorists, which is a lot more than we're doing.
Well, and if you follow the money, and this is something, ladies and gentlemen, you can check for yourselves. For well over 100 years, Christians in America in particular, have been steadfast in their support for a Jewish homeland, for the nation of Israel. Now, it's interesting because what we're seeing is many evangelical Christians are now being swayed. There's a growing movement of mainline Protestants in particular who are becoming more and more and more critical of Israel. Why is this? We decided to take a closer look at this, ladies and gentlemen, and what we found. with the support of anti-Israel Palestinian groups and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, being funded right now, for example, by liberal so-called philanthropists, one being George Soros. They are attempting to sway evangelical Christians and Christians in general away from supporting Israel at all costs. The question is, can Israel and the Jewish community survive this barrage of anti-Semitism? And how we're seeing it play out, and you're not going to see this on the evening news, and Joe alluded to this earlier, I had stated this on earlier programs. We are seeing more and more here in the United States synagogues being trashed by graffiti or being vandalized. And this is caused by an undercurrent of this anti-Semitism that originates or has its origins in parts, or at least in some parts, of the very evangelical community of which we belong. Now think about that. Look, for how many years Israel has been the target of really a lot of Christian mainline Protestant churches in particular. If you look at Presbyterian Church USA, they recently released this anti-Israeli study guide called Zionism Unsettled. Have you seen that, folks? Probably not. If you don't belong to the Presbyterian Church USA, you probably haven't seen this study guide. They are urging people to boycott Israel, engage in divestment and sanctions against Israel. There's something called the Divestment and Sanctions Movement, it's a BDS movement against Israel, and a number of Protestants in particular, and Christians in general, have joined this anti-Semitism. Well, if you follow the money, it is the socialist democrat initiatives behind which are so-called philanthropists that include, and specifically I'm naming him by name, George Soros. And if you look at the circle of Soros, and this is well documented. I'm not just pulling his name out because he's well known. Soros, by the way, happens to claim he's Jewish, but he's been a very frequent and very vocal critic of Israel through the network of Open Society Foundations, which Soros founded. And he's also founded a number of other anti-Israel organizations that are aimed at total delegitimization, saying Israel does not have the right to exist, period, okay? They are intent on shifting U.S. public opinion against Israel and promoting fringe political opposition groups inside Israel. Folks, we've got to understand we're being gamed here. And as Joe had indicated, you've got Hamas, which is, and Hezbollah, two groups that are being armed in part as well by Iran, in part being armed by other programs that are related to the United States by our State Department, by the very people that we're helping, who use their citizens, their civilians, as human shields. And once of course, Israel does everything to avoid killing civilians. However, collateral damage does happen, especially when you're using civilians as human shields. So, as soon as a child or an innocent gets hurt by a bomb or a bullet, that makes the evening news. And of course, the anti-Semitism is ramped up there. The emotional aspect of things is being ramped up. So you see this circular, this never-ending circular anti-Semitic, anti-Israel frenzy. And we're looking, and I do believe that we're looking at the very least at a third intifada, if not an all-out regional war in Israel, or against Israel at this point. And the United States is really not going to, the United States is, at least the renegade in chief, is behind it. So Joe, I think looking at the bigger picture here, when you look at all the deep pockets, these socialist, democratic, progressive funded organizations that are funding and swaying public opinion against Israel, they are attempting to whip up the Arab-Palestinian population here in America, in Canada, and elsewhere, and especially in Europe, as we saw in London and Paris, against Israel, to delegitimize, there I said it, Israel. And this is really, they've got the pedal to the metal on this right now. And you might think, well, with all the other stuff going on in the world, why bother? Why bother cover this? Well, because this is, if we look at really the news as a building, the Middle East, what's taking place in the Middle East is really a great big portion of the foundation of the news. So we have to see this from all sides, understand we're being gamed, understand that we, through our Western intelligence operations and black op covert operations, are actually funding Hamas in particular and Hezbollah as well against Israel. And, of course, arming the very nations, including ISIS. They want to exterminate Israel, too. All of this is playing into the hands. This is, and if you talk to socialists, Democrats, progressives, communists, New World Order people, this is exactly what they want. They want to see really the genocide against the Jews and another Holocaust. And I say that only because, well, what's the alternative? They have no other alternative. They say land for peace. No. It's never been land for peace. Joe?
And we do have a lot of news to get into tonight. There's concerns of Ebola virus, lots of news on that, and I guess we can jump there right now. The CDC has issued a travel airline advisory stating that it's a level 3 alert, whatever that means. Although the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is on record that Ebola poses little risk to the U.S. population, the agency is still publishing guidance for airline flight crews, cleaning personnel, cargo workers, and all others regarding safe handling of infected passengers. The advisory began describing Ebola as a severe, often fatal disease that, while rare, can spread from person to person, especially among healthcare staff and other people who have close contact with infected persons. The advisory then notes the likelihood of contracting Ebola is extremely low unless a person has direct contact with body fluids of a person or animal that is infected and showing symptoms. Now, what I find interesting is the CDC's, just a few weeks back, they were saying how this was not an airborne threat, or this was an airborne threat. This could be spread very easily. Now they're stepping back a little bit and saying, you need to come in contact with somebody. It can only be spread like HIV or AIDS through body fluids. There's a lot of, I don't want to say misconceptions, but disinformation being put out there, intentionally or unintentionally, about how this spreads. Either way, there's over about 1,200 people that are known to be infected right now. Over 700 have died, and this is continuing to get worse and worse as Liberia closed its borders as Ebola hits major West African cities. And I have a quick audio clip I want to play here, how the Ebola virus could spread beyond Africa.
It's being called the biggest outbreak of Ebola ever seen. Since February, close to 1,100 people have contracted the disease, and at least 660 have died. Those numbers don't include one of the latest cases, which has global health authorities particularly alarmed. the death on July 25th of a Liberian government official. What's so worrisome about his case? Patrick Sawyer died shortly after arriving in Africa's biggest city, Lagos, Nigeria, which is home to nearly 21 million people. Mr. Sawyer had flown there from Monrovia, Liberia, a country where the disease has now taken at least 129 lives. The World Health Organization has been warning that Ebola could spread beyond Liberia and the two other hardest-hit countries, Guinea and Sierra Leone, to neighboring countries. Also, that someone with the disease boarded a flight raises the specter of Ebola spreading beyond Africa. Did Mr. Sawyer infect other people? That's unclear. The disease is spread through contact with bodily fluids. The good news is that he was placed in isolation shortly after arriving in Lagos with symptoms of the disease. What are the symptoms? In the early stages, they resemble those of many other illnesses. They include fever and sore throat. That's why it's difficult to prevent Ebola victims from traveling. Is there a way to screen for it? There's no simple way. Ebola is diagnosed with a blood test, and normally it takes a few days for laboratories to confirm the results. Before someone dies, the more dramatic symptoms can take hold, which include bleeding from the eyes. Not everyone who contracts Ebola dies, but most who do die quickly.
All right, there was a quick clip as to what was happening in Lagos there. And Lagos is a city of 21 million people. I learned it's a humongous number.
But this is all backwards. The spread of this Ebola virus is all backwards right now, which creates the question, could this very well be a manufactured event? Now, let's bring this to the United States. Let's bring this to North America, the continent of North America, and in particular the United States. What's behind all of this? Rick Wiles had made mention of this, I believe it was today. I think it was today. If not, it was yesterday, but it was within the last couple of days. The Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, which is a direct assault on our civil liberties in the name of Homeland Security. What we're seeing playing out here, and please understand exactly what's happening here. In response to this bio threat that's being brought into this country, whether it be through across the border or by some other artificial means, the Department of Health and Human Services now has integrated itself into the Homeland Security aspect of fighting or taking away our civil liberties based on merely the threat of Ebola. So, folks, please pay attention to a couple of different things very quickly here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Joe after I just go through this very quickly. Under what is known as the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, you've got once a public health emergency is declared, and it can be declared by region, by governor, or on a federal level, you have got governors and state public health authorities that would be expanded, would have extremely large, well-expanded police powers. Okay? Now, while a few other actions are done, when things happen, when a state of emergency is declared or the threat of a potential virus or an epidemic is identified, under this Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, governors and public health officials have the authority to force individuals who are suspected of harboring any kind of infectious disease they would force them into a medical examination. Now, that doesn't sound like maybe it doesn't automatically sound like a bad thing, but hold on here. Because once that happens, they are tracked. The information, the individual personal health information, is now put into a database that is accessible to the entirety of the federal government, including all police agencies. And that includes your genetic information. At the same time, those people believed to be possible or potential threats can be under force, can be vaccinated, they can be subjected to whatever treatment is declared to be required given the situation. They could. This act also mandates all healthcare providers to report all cases of persons who harbor any illness or any health condition that poses a public threat. Now, this is where it gets very expansive and goes beyond the norm. If you're considered a substantial risk or to a significant number of people, you can, in fact, be classified as a public health risk and a homeland security risk, and at that point your status as a citizen changes. Pharmacists would be able to, or would be, not be able to, but would be required to report any suspected, unusual, or increased prescriptions that could suggest the treatment of a virus that would be classified under the mandated state Emergency Health Powers Act. So in other words, let's say your corner drugstore, all of a sudden, when dispensing, I don't know, as an example, 100 prescriptions per week of antibiotics, let's say it goes up to 150. Federal authorities now become involved, and the vehicle which they're using now is the Affordable Care Act. Now you think, okay, this is all well and good because this is for the public good, right? This is for the public health. Wait a second, because from this point on now, what happens is your rights immediately are suspended. They can take you, they can put you into quarantine, they can quarantine your family, they can quarantine your neighborhood, they could take away all of your rights to travel, they can commandeer your property, control public and private property, including pharmaceuticals, plants, nursing homes, other healthcare facilities. And they also threw in here communication devices. They can take away your ability to communicate with others. Now, you might think, how much sense does this make? When you take a few steps back and take a look at the whole thing. They also, and isn't this interesting, this is in this act where they will control, ration your access to, ownership and possession of firearms, food, fuel, alcoholic beverages, and any other commodity deemed necessary to prevent the furtherance of whatever contagion that they believe. They don't even have to prove that they believe exists. And then, of course, they can impose fines and penalties to enforce their orders, which amounts to, martial law. And that's how they can do this. And as citizens across the country, you are completely impotent once this takes place. And isn't that funny, or isn't it ironic, shall we say, that what we see taking place with Ebola, with other viruses coming across the border, and with the little notations. I mean, have you heard the ABC Nightly News or NBC Nightly News get into any of this? I haven't. I haven't heard Fox News talk about this. I haven't heard any news agency talk about this. But this is what's under order right now. And if you want to look for yourself, it's the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. And by the way, I think the majority of the states have adopted this and adopted variations of this act. And also under the Affordable Care Act, it's built in the infrastructure of the Affordable Care Act. So you want to lose civil liberties? There you go.
In other news, out of Argentina, yesterday, Argentina declared in default by S&P as talks fail. Standard & Poor's declared Argentina in default after government missed a deadline for paying interest on a $13 billion restructured bonds. The South American country failed to get the $539 million payment to bondholders after a U.S. judge ruled that the money couldn't be distributed unless a group of hedge fund holding default debt also got paid. Argentina, in default for the second time in 13 years, has about $200 billion in foreign currency debt, including $30 billion of restructured bonds, according to S&P. Argentina and hedge funds, led by billionaire Paul Singer Elliott's Management Corporation, failed to reach agreement in talks today in New York, according to the court-appointed mediator in the case, Daniel Pollock. In a press conference after the talks ended, Argentina Economist Minister Axel Klickoff described the group as creditors as vulture funds and said the country wouldn't sign an accord under extortion. The full consequences of default are not predictable, but they certainly are not positive, Pollock wrote in an emailed statement. Default is not a mere technical condition, but rather a real painful event that will hurt people. This, folks, if you remember in 2001, Argentina went through the same problems here, and is similar, very similar to what here in America we will go through at one point in time if the economy holds on long enough to default on it.
Yeah, and I saw you working on this earlier, Joe, looking at this and the comparisons between the U.S. and Argentina and where we are now. The down, you mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the show, the down is down 300.
17, yeah.
Yeah. Now people might say, well, look, you're looking at the end of July. Of course, this is the last day of July. So there are reports that, the stocks are influenced, especially now with the high-frequency trading. It's really not a necessarily good indicator of much. However, at least not much normal. And, of course, you can study that, folks, on your own. Rogue Money's got a roguemoney.net. V's website. He's got a lot of great articles about the high-frequency trading and really with the stock market. It's really all an illusion. But you're right about Argentina defaulting. Look, right now, today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 317 points. Folks, you might think I'm crazy, but please notice these numbers. Remember when W was on talking about numbers, the significance of numbers, numerology, occult numerology? Flight 17, 1700 hours, 17 this, 17 that. Now we've got the Dow falling 317. Isn't that interesting? S&P shed, almost 40 points or 2%. They're down to 1930.67. NASDAQ down. They dropped 93.13 points. Isn't that
2%?
Interesting?
Yeah.
Oh. So, 2.1%. These are all of these things are coming really to a head at the same time. And this is not good. When you take a look at the economy in general, but what's the real issue here? Is it the numbers on the big board or the small board? Are the numbers really that important? The significance of the numbers perhaps are, but really the numbers don't reflect reality. What reflects reality is when you pull into the gas station or the grocery store, and we all have to buy food. We all have to fill up our gas tank. We all have to spend the money, or buy food and buy gas and pay our gas bill, electric bill, light bill, so on. We've got to do this, and when look, folks, we're running out of. We got too much month, not enough money. I don't know about you, but I look at the month and I'm thinking, wait a minute. They suddenly. What happened here? Did my money? What happened to my money? I got too much month for my money, and you might think, well, that's kind of a funny thing to say. Well, it's not, because the devaluation of the dollar, and we had told you this before. The devaluation of the dollar, the eradication of the middle class, this is exactly what, through many means, this is what we're talking about. Argentina is a symptom, just like what's taking place over with the V had said this so well, too. I mean, we could talk about this in one entire program. BRICS nations, 120-some nations, really. It's just not the specific 5 nations. You're talking about 122 nations. Now, the move away from the U.S. dollar is so significant it can't be denied. And who has asked? Has anyone asked in the mainstream media or even in the alternative media? Has anyone asked about the killing off of the U.S. dollar? Remember Kyle Bass's interview with, we believe it's Peter Geithner, the Obama official was never identified, but at least not publicly, but through extrapolation. We suspect it was Timothy Geithner. Has anyone asked what the deal is with that? Because that's certainly a treasonous act, killing off the U.S. dollar, devaluing the U.S. dollar. It's already been devalued by 98% since 1913. However, that last 2%, the remaining string that we've got, is what is keeping the middle class afloat, or what's left of the middle class. So, folks, look, and how does this fit into everything? Look at what's taking place in this with the border. There's no border. You've got an impotent House, a Senate that has been captured by the socialist Democrats, by the progressives. So you've got John Bonnier, who's impotent or complicit, or perhaps both, doing nothing to stop the influx of immigrants. They're balkanizing the United States. The very influx of these illegal aliens is affecting our way of life in so many different ways, from the health aspect that we just talked about to the economic aspect, to the strain on the economic system. This is Cloward and Piven strategy to the moon. However, it's even worse than that, because this is being done by both parties. Now, you're not going to necessarily hear Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and the cheerleaders for the right or the conservatives talk about it, nor will you hear the real truth from Matthews and that other woman, Maddow, and the other Melissa Harry Paris. What's her name? You're not going to hear about her or hear her talk about it. Harris Perry, whatever her name is, on MSNBC. You're not going to hear this. But this is an assault. This is a war against the middle class. And the middle class, once that goes, of course, our country goes. We already have 3 things: the culture, the economy, and our economic system, our money. That makes the country. Our borders, gone. The consequence of that, culture, gone. Money, gone. Our national identity is gone.
In a unrelated story, we're going to be getting into some of the issues on the border tonight, but this out of West Virginia, health department tells church trying to feed the needy not so fast. A Methodist church in West Virginia was stopped in its efforts to help the needy last week when the county health department told them their plan violated the state health codes. The parishioners at First United Methodist Church had decided to install a large refrigerator outside their building for those that need could access any time. Anticipating concerns about food safety, they planned to stock it with only prepackaged food and build a cage around it to prevent small children from climbing inside. We just wanted a way for more people to have access to food, along with some privacy and a little dignity. This from the Reverend of the church. It goes on to say that too wild for one bad Samaritan who filed an anonymous complaint with the Jackson County Health Department before the fridge had even been stocked. 2 days after that, they set it up. The man came knocking on the door. Attorneys had assured me that on our own property we could have a fridge, that as long as the rules and regulations were followed, but the health department came and shut it down. They were not eager to be painted as bad guys, the health department, but our concern with this church was never providing for the poor. We think it's just providing for the poor. We think that is very noble. It's just making sure that the food is safe. A refrigerator is not to be left outside. They're not made for that. Rain, snow, sleet, even heat can be an issue in operating a refrigerator. But we're also concerned about the food safety, he added. Leaving an unmanned refrigerator on a sidewalk is not a safe environment. We see this growing across the United States, the government stepping in through different agencies, whether it's Department of Homeland Security, local police forces, sheriff's departments, USDA, stepping in and basically making it illegal to feed the homeless. It's happened in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Texas, California, and this is just a few off the top of my head over the last year. Meanwhile, we have this huge influx of, I don't know what we could call them anymore. They're not children that walk to the United States from Honduras. I mean, just imagine, a group of 100,000 10-year-olds being told by their parents to walk from New York City to California and to Los Angeles. How many of those kids are going to make it there alive without assistance?
Or hop a train or a bus or,
right.
Take a mule or whatever,
I mean, what we're being told is a border crisis of oppressed children from Honduras and other Central American areas that were sent here by their parents for a better life is hogwash. It's complete nonsense. Yes, there are children that are in Mexico that are in these places that do need help, but they're not coming over by the hundreds of thousands in an organized fashion, without funds, without help, without resources or protection, traveling thousands of miles, not even old enough at my age. When I was that age, I couldn't even walk a mile to my grandmother's house, let alone across the country or across countries.
This is why, by the way, and I'm going to say this because I'm really angry about this. This is why Glenn Beck is, in my view, my personal opinion, is dead wrong in getting involved in the humanitarian, or saying that this is a humanitarian crisis. Look, we understand about, boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble by saying this, obviously.
No, you're right, because first of all, he's under the preconceived notion that these are all children, which is completely false.
Thank you.
These are adults. These are gang members. There are some children which are probably being used as the face of this invasion. And yes, if there are just children who are in need, we should help them. But are we going to help the MS-13 gang members that are working with the Sinaloa drug cartel and our U.S. government to ship in drugs? No, but we are.
Anyone who is a part of the Sheila Jackson Lee Lollipop Brigade or the Glenn Beck Panda Bear or Teddy Bear Brigade, as far as I'm concerned, are facilitating, are part of the problem. They're exacerbating the problem. They're accepting they're falling for the lie. The lie here, folks, is what Joe just said. Look, we're not talking about think about the logistics of this. This has been planned. This has been planned at the nation-state level, at the level of the governments, of different governments in Central America, with the collusion and complicity of Mexico. And this is a big PR endeavor, using children, as they always do. They use the children, folks, as the impetus for this, well, we've got to do something. And, of course, Obama wants to throw, $3.7 billion, or 3.7, whatever that number is. I apologize, 3.7 million or billion. But the fact of the matter is, the Border Patrol has been rendered impotent. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement has been rendered impotent. Our laws have been violated. Our federal government is actually involved in the trafficking of illegal aliens, minors across state lines, some of which are carrying diseases into your communities, and no one is stopping them. And in fact, some people in the alternative media, including but not limited to Glenn Beck, are saying, "Hey, we got to help. We got to help them." What are you helping?
Well, listen, Breitbart did an article about collect more than $7,000 per month for fostering adult illegal aliens. No, nothing about children. This is from Texas. The federal government is in dire need of U.S. citizens willing to house the thousands of illegal immigrants who enter their country each week, and they're willing to pay them to do so. A Texas-based nonprofit Catholic charity is currently seeking out foster families for migrants, most of whom come from Central America. A spokeswoman from the organization told Breitbart Texas that foster families can receive monthly payments for housing adults under the age of 23. Most of our children are 15 to 17-year-olds, she said, but some have to stay in our program until they're 22 years old. I mean, in the U.S. foster system, when you're 18, and I know this because I have friends who grew up in a foster home throughout their whole life, you're done. There's no extension till 22. And if so, that's something that would be worked out between the person who was a foster child and their foster family. If they got along, things went well, and they wanted to really adopt them legally or non-legally as their children, then yes, that can happen. But you don't have 19-year-olds that are allowed to apply for foster programs to be taken care of by other families. This whole thing is a lie.
Thanks. Yes, you're exactly right. It is a lie, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lie originated out of both parties, by the globalists within both parties. And if you want, by the way, does anyone remember Ramos and Compion? Remember that under
the two Border Patrol agents?
Yes.
Who were charged with murder for
not murder, but shooting at Davila was the mule drug trafficker, Jose Davila. This is going back under the George W. Bush administration. But the reason I brought that up is because people think, well, this is just an Obama thing. No, this goes back to George W. Bush. As uncomfortable as that makes you feel, you've got to understand that we're talking about a globalist initiative and not just a Republican-Democrat paradigm or a socialist, Democrat, progressive versus conservative issue. No, this is, everyone has got dirt and blood on their hands on this. Folks, we're up against the top of the hour. You're listening to a very special Thursday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. It's just Joe and I in studio. We're having a conversation about what's really important, what's really taking place, the news behind the news, of course. And I want to remind folks, as we, right before the break here, the American Survival Wholesale team, they're going to be at the Paul McGuire event tonight in Los Angeles, 7 p.m. at the Sportsman's Lodge on Ventura Boulevard. Look, they'd love to meet any of the listeners, okay, from the area. So you can be excused to attend the American Survival Wholesale meeting with Paul McGuire tonight in Los Angeles, 7 p.m. Pacific time at the Sportsman's Lodge on Ventura Boulevard. Bring your partner.
Yeah,
I got to tell you,
they had a chance.
Right.
They had a Paul.
Right.
Join the prayer group.
Right. That's absolutely right. We'll be right back, folks.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this Thursday, July 31st edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I want to thank Ken for that audio from Siri, who apparently always listens to our show. Thank you, Ken, for putting that together. I thought that was kind of was interesting. When I came into the studio today, my dad played that for me, and I thought it was some kind of joke, but it was an audio put together by Ken, and Ken, thank you so much for that. We will use that and continue to use that in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken has also been kind enough to. Now, I don't know what these are, but QR. Well, you know those little funky-looking logo type or codes. You know, you can scan with your cell phone scanners. We're going to have Ken put together a quick layout of our logo with our website URL and a QR code for cell phone scanners, so we can get those developed too. It's kind of neat. You can actually get the app that way. The app, of course, folks, is available. If you haven't downloaded it for your mobile device, do so. It does have a lot of qualities that I believe you'll use. And, of course, Hagmann folks, I would urge you to go to Hagmann and for a very limited time, here's what I've agreed to do. And it's up to you. We've got a series of both our logo, it's a 3-inch round logo, and some bumper stickers. If you'll use them, if you want them, we're going to send them out free of charge. We are sending them out to the people who have supported us and helped us. But if you want them, no strings attached. You know, it's an amazing way to spread the word about the show, but it's also another amazing way if you're a listener and you see somebody else with one of those stickers, you can introduce yourself and you know you're around like-minded people. But with that, Joe, let's get back into the news. As Joe is over there looking.
I'm grabbing my other headlines here. Some of the headlines here are going to be a few days old, as we've had guests on for the first few days of this week, Monday through Wednesday, and into last week, the end of last week. So some of this you guys might have heard, but it is important, and I do want to make sure everybody gets a chance to hear this. A Freedom Flotilla 2 set to sail for Gaza from Turkey. This was from an article on the 28th of July. Amid Israel's Operation Protective Edge to stop Hamas attacks from Gaza, a Freedom Flotilla is being organized in Turkey to bring humanitarian aid to the Hamas-controlled Palestinian coastal enclave, which the protection of the Turkish military, according to unconfirmed media reports. The flotilla, called Freedom Flotilla 2, is organized by Turkish Humanitarian Relief Foundation, the same organization that was behind the Mavi Marmara Flotilla that sought to break Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip in May 2010. Israel's Navy commandos boarded the ship, were attacked, and killed 9 of the attackers.
Now, hold on a second now, because you're going to hear, folks, that Turkey has agreed to cancel this, okay? You're going to hear this. In fact, this news came out, I think, might have come out yesterday, late yesterday. In exchange for Turkey's cancellation, Jerusalem allowed for the Turks to send planes of humanitarian aid to Gaza. However, and this is why we're mentioning it, this is why Joe's bringing this up today, according to the information that we have, there are arms shipments being made in place of or in addition to these humanitarian flights, okay? And a lot of our own politicians, leaders are involved in that process. So while you might hear that this is canceled, don't fall for the lie. So just wanted to let you know that. And I know that you were saying that, you know, I didn't mean to take your steam there, because I have a feeling you were headed toward the notice of the cancellation. But look, folks, do not fall for it. Israel and Turkey were, well, I'm not even going to get into that. Let's just say this.
Here, I got a following headline which goes along with this.
I want to be careful with what I say because we got some sources telling us some things that were not public. However, it has a lot to do with the shipments of arms into Gaza and around Gaza. Go ahead, sir.
Arab leaders turning against Hamas. This is current from today. Israel hit support from Arab states led by Egypt in its war against Hamas in Gaza, the New York Times reported. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates have lined up behind Cairo in backing Jerusalem's military campaign against the Islamic Resistance Movement, or Hamas. The Arab Spring, a populist uprising which began in 2010, empowered political Islam, unleashed chaos, and threatened conservative Arab leaders, according to the Times. In contrast to previous Palestinian-Israeli fighting in Gaza, the Arab leaders are not pressuring Washington to tell Israel to stop. That gave Israelis leeway, according to a Mideast political expert from Shalem College in Jerusalem. Neither Cairo-led coalition nor Israel want to see Hamas come out of the current fighting as the most powerful Palestinian player. Khalid Elindi from the Brookings Institute agreed. There is clearly a convergence of interest of these various regimes with Israel, the Times reported. The Arab states' loathing and fear of political Islam is so strong that it outweighs their allergy to Benjamin Netanyahu. Aaron David Miller, a Middle East expert who worked under several presidents, stated. Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt overthrew his Muslim Brotherhood predecessor, Mohammed Morsi, in July. Well, Mubarak and Morsi led Egypt. Hamas used tunnels between Gaza and the Sunni Peninsula to smuggle weapons and contraband. Under Sisi, not only have the tunnels been sealed, but the border crossings have been only intermittently opened. And it goes on to say that they're coming together, the leadership, Arab leadership, to make sure that Hamas is not coming out of this with any type of power, with any type of negotiating tools, tactics. They want this stopped as they see ISIS ravish people in droves, executions, church burnings. Today I saw an article where the tombs of Jonah and Daniel were blown up by Hamas. Ancient tombs.
Okay, right. But let's stop here, and this is so important, what ISIS is doing. Folks, I was talking to W, of course, our intelligence insider earlier. This is Saigon, exponentially Saigon all over again. What we have done with the United States, what the Obama renegade-in-chief, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry, and even the sins of omission by everyone in the House and Senate, by all of the diplomatic people, what we've done is we've abandoned the very people who depended upon us. They are victims of ISIS. And folks, please understand the origin of the name, and please don't let the name just please understand what the name means, the attachment to the Egyptian god. But here's the bottom line: if you go to Walid Shoebat's website, it's SHOEBAT.com, you will find.
If you have the stomach.
Well, yeah, but you know what? People need to have the stomach. People need to see what's really going on. You're going to see some rare footage, according to Walid, about Muslims creating this literal river of human blood by butchering 1,500 innocent people. Folks, look at this. ISIS released a video showing what they claim are Iraq's army POWs captured by ISIS, driven away in truckloads, and then they shot them all dead. The video caption stated there are 1,500 individuals. Now imagine that, and you can see the pool of blood on the platform as they're getting killed individually and collectively at one point in a ditch, and you can see ISIS the ISIS members shooting these people execution style. The voice on the voiceover speaks how they captured soldiers covering their uniforms with civilian clothes. They show soldiers pleading, cursing Malachi, while others chant, "Long live Islamic Nation." The last man they slapped as they went down to the river had part of his back showing as his shirt was short, and they blurred his skin lest it was sexually arousing. This is how these cretins think, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? We, the United States, this is what we created. According to them, we will revenge and return measure with measure soon. The Muslim will walk everywhere, dignify with his head high. Of course, meanwhile, at the same time, bullets were ravaging the Muslims that we left in Iraq to suffer their fate. Meanwhile, of course, Barack Hussein Obama, the renegade in chief, was glorifying Islam for their contribution here in the United States and worldwide at the end of Ramadan. You can't make this up. Who can possibly support this savage behavior? This is not, by the way, and I see this on forum after forum after forum, this is not the age-old Muslim versus Muslim, Shiite versus Shia, one sect versus, sectarian violence. It has nothing to do with this. This is orchestrated mass genocide. This is orchestrated killing. This is out of control. This is by this country, by America. That's what this is all about. This is the blood of the hands, or the blood of the innocents are on the hands of Barack Hussein Obama, by Valerie Jarrett, the Night Stalker, by every member of the Council on American Islamic Relations CARE. And that's, you know what, you wonder why people like Rush Limbaugh and others won't speak out against this kind of violence and against the savagery of Islam. It's because they're afraid of the litigious Council on American Islamic Relations. Well, let me tell you something. When you have nothing, when they can't, what are they going to take from me? My huge bank account? My Maserati? Oh, wait a minute. My Maserati is getting work done. I got a 16-year or 15-year-old vehicle in the driveway. I'm sorry. So I'm not afraid of the Council on American Islamic Relations CARE, that terrorist-related organization in America that's infiltrated the White House and every member or every section of our government, including Homeland Security. Folks, we better be very upset with what's taking place and pay attention to what's taking place with ISIS in Iraq and all across the Middle East. This is, Joe, this is what you're talking about. This is a very prophetic battle. This is a very prophetic battle, and Christians are in the crosshairs. In Syria, they're going into Syria. They intend to defeat Assad. Then they're going to kill all of the Christians, and no one is speaking up in favor of them. No one.
Yeah. Switching gears here to a story that is 2 days old. Homeland Security agents raid home to seize Land Rover for violation of EPA regulations. I found this story to be rather interesting, seeing what the DHS and EPA are focused on in these times we see where gang members, terrorists are crossing our borders and being put up in hotel suites, being housed and given, supplies and munitions, whatever it is that they're given. But in another example of how DHS expanded far outside its original function, 6 vehicles full of DHS agents were required to seize a Land Rover from a couple in Statesville, North Carolina, due to the fact that their vehicle allegedly violates EPA emission standards. As part of its mission to protect the homeland, The DHS has been busy seizing imported vehicles that don't comply with safety and CO2 regulations. Jennifer and Bill Brinkley were satisfied that their $60,000 purchase of a Land Rover Defender on the eBay complied with regulations because it fell into the exemption category of a vehicle 25 years or older. However, Department of Homeland Security agents turned up at the property and compared the car's vehicle identification number to a list and immediately seized the Land Rover. The couple were not given a chance to debate the issue. It goes on to say that the feds were given the Brinkleys 35 days to appeal the seizure, but refused to tell them where the vehicle is located. They've also failed to respond to media requests about the incident. Department of Homeland Security, created after the 9/11 terrorist attack, was tasked with the role of protecting America from terrorists, man-made accidents, and natural disasters. However, it has now been turned into a national police force with extends from seizing websites for copyright infringement to confiscating fake NFL merchandise. As the Rutherford Institute John Whitehead explained in a widely circulated article last month, the DHS is becoming America's domestic standing army. The menaces of the National Police Force, a.k.a. standing army vested with no such power, cannot be overstated, nor can its danger be ignored, wrote Whitehead. And this is just one example of many incidents
beta test
of how military-style invasions of small towns and raids are being conducted, not only on people who have vehicles that might or might not conform to the EPA's emission standards, but to the Amish and farmers who sell raw milk, who sell food that is non-GMO. I'm getting reports from people and listeners and everybody out there who's done so. I want to thank you. Getting pictures of
Joe, I think you just blinked out there. I check your mic. Maybe I blinked up. All right. Well, look, all of what we're seeing here, folks, is look at the larger picture. You've got to look at the larger picture. It's not one Land Rover. It's not one vehicle. It's not one emission violation. Why is this important? Why is this important 2 days, 3 days after it made news initially? It's important because of the larger agenda. As we know, what is happening with the New World Order people, what's going on here, the power brokers, what they're doing is step by step by step by step, they're taking things, and this would be very much like, in my view, a symptom. If you've got a lump on your breast, well, this particular case is like having a lump on your breast. This is a symptom that you better pay attention. You better get it checked out. You better find out what's going on here. I'm not meaning to, obviously not meaning to be graphic here, but just trying to compare it to something that people can relate to. This is all about the agenda that is coming at us at full speed. Now, by the way, the bat phone rang, and I'm not sure if we're going to be joined or not, but waiting for that. But go ahead, Joe. It's I just was saying while you were attempting to reconnect, and which you have, that...
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, all right.
I rerouted our host call-in through a different line, and I'm called in as a guest, as are you. But hopefully this won't... The internet can't knock off our host connection now, so we should be fine. And I hope it sounds okay.
And yeah, it's I haven't gotten any reports on the sound, but it's very interesting. And folks, we're doing things behind the scenes to make sure that there will come a day when the news will be censored, when we're not going to be able to do this. I have a feeling, and I spoke with Augusta Perez yesterday. I spoke with Steve Quayle today and others, and then I got a feeling that at some point you might not be able to turn to the internet for the news, or solely for our program. So we are, just trust us when we say we're doing some things behind the scenes to create a way to get you this information that you need to know in a different format. So, but having said that, Joe, go ahead and continue. Like I said, this environmental thing, the environmental issue, I shouldn't say thing. This is extremely important because it's going to become very personal to a lot of people as this goes across the country under the pretext of I'm getting some really terrible reverb in my headphones here, but under the pretext of the ecology, the environment, of course, but this is asset confiscation is what is being planned. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, this Berlin points fingers at NATO for June ATC blackouts. I found this article to be very interesting, especially since Dave Hodges was on and we were talking about these different EMP threats. And also, as a side note, folks, I will be on with Dave Hodges this Sunday night for the last 2 hours of his show. So anybody who wants to listen, his website is thecommonsenseshow.com, and he's on Sunday nights. Tune in to listen to Dave Hodges interview me, and we're going to have a discussion about many things that are happening in the world this Sunday for the last 2 hours of his show. But this article, the German government has indicated that NATO electronic warfare training exercises were responsible for a civilian ATC radar display blackout in Central Europe on June 5th and the 10th of June 2014. IHS Janes has obtained the government's answer to a parliamentary question on 17th of July, in which it is noted that the relevant time period of two separate exercises by NATO forces with EW assets, electronic warfare assets, were conducted, in the first case by Hungarian Air Force and in second by the Italian Army under undisclosed partners. Both exercises involved ground-based air defense radar assets that were held under NATO electronic warfare integration period program. The German government said that there is especially dedicated to test and train electronic warfare in the airspace. Further details at the moment cannot be given as investigations by ESA and NATO are ongoing. Informed by IHS Jane about Germany's information, an Australian Air Force official would not disclose if Austria was informed about NATO's EW activities in its airspace. The official emphasized that during the June incidents, the Air Force retained full coverage of Austrian airspace with a situational awareness picture called Crudifer, it's an odd name, which provided a 3-fixed Celex ES RAT 3 1L primary radars. In other words, NATO and its coalition of nations carried out an electronic warfare exercise which blinded the civilian air traffic control in several separate countries and several separate occasions. With all the stuff we've seen with planes missing and planes being shot down, what are we looking at here with these drills, these electronic warfare drills? Why are these electronic warfare drills being allowed to be taken place unannounced in countries that have nothing to do with where the drills are taking place from? And how does this play into what we're seeing today or what we could face in the future? Well, it's a dangerous scenario.
You've got to, once again, look at the chess game that's being played. A lot of people, and I think that we need to spend a little bit of time on this, a lot of people don't really understand, for example, Russia, Ukraine, NATO, how all of this fits together. We're seeing this symphony play out in front of us. And perhaps symphony is too classy of a term. We're seeing this magic act play out before us. We are right now at the precipice of World War III, and I don't want to sound dramatic, and I don't want to sound like the sky is falling, because there are enough people out there saying the sky is falling. And we've got, by the way, at some point we've got to address people who are making certain claims that are very sensational, but they're not backed in any type of reality, and we certainly don't want to fall into that category. But if you look at the place we're in, and I mentioned this during the show with John Cameron when he was on Monday. For example, how the demonic spirit of Edward Wayne Edwards was so pervasive. He would kill someone and then set someone else up for the killing, and then relish in the fact that not only was he able to kill once, he was able to create the situation where the state, everyone was against that other person, the innocent person, and they killed them, but the state killed them for a crime that Edward Wayne Edwards, committed. Well, think of that on a larger scale today. Go back, and I mentioned this before, go back to March 8th, 1968, where the Soviet submarine, the K-129, 300 miles north of Hawaii, went down or exploded. There was a nuclear explosion, and one of the missiles in the missile tubes, a nuclear missile, according to stories that you're not going to read about in the history books or see on Wikipedia or hear about anywhere, this Russian submarine was going to bomb or nuke Hawaii, or a city in Hawaii. Well, what was that all about? This is, again, during the height of the Cold War. And in fact, when I was explaining this, I had gotten it wrong. I had gotten it backwards. It was a case where my brain was moving too fast for my lips, or the other way around. But the fact of the matter is at that time, on that date, on that March day in 1968, Russia was attempting to set up China. Because don't forget, the war was raging in Indochina, and the theory or the illusion was that China was behind the actual nuking, or would have been behind the actual nuking of America, this in particular in Honolulu. And that became the K-129 incident, the Gulf II submarine. So Russia would actually create the act, kind of like Edward Wayne Edwards, and then blame it on China, and of course, or have the blame cast upon China, have the world and America rally against China. America and China, of course, would get into it, and Russia would come in and pick up the pieces. Pretty demonic, right? Pretty outlandish, you might think, correct? Well, if you think that's outlandish, go ahead and look at the classified and recently declassified accounts of the Glomar Explorer. I'm pretty heavy duty on this incident. That could have changed the entire course of the world. Well, in fact, it did change the course of the world. Few people know this as well as Intelligence Insider W, but the fact of the matter is, aren't we seeing this today with Ukraine, with Russia, with things that are happening in the Middle East, all across the world? We're seeing false flags being created. We almost saw a false flag. Well, we did see a false flag with respect to Syria, the chemical weapons. The difference, however, is the public wasn't buying that Syria was behind a chemical weapons attack, when in fact they weren't. It was the Western-backed terrorist group that was behind the chemical weapons attack. Otherwise, we would be in World War III with NATO, United States and NATO a part of this. So when Joe talks about NATO just now, we're talking about NATO. We're talking about the different hotspots all across the world. I'm sorry. Please understand that all of these are interrelated. That the same people who are directing these incidents, these creating these situations, although it would appear that they're on opposing sides, they're working together. What's their objective? Their objective is to create a one world order, a one world government, one world religion. By the way, you cannot have a one-world religion without a one-world financial system And you can't have a one-world financial system until you destroy the middle class of the United States. And you might get tired of me saying this, but folks, this is what this is all about. This is what this is all about. Everything that we're seeing right now is chess at multiple levels. And we cannot just look at the incident or the situation in Ukraine and Russia. We can't look at NATO as being a single entity or a single group of nations that are working for one side. We have to look at this as being multiple levels here. As is often said, the lie is different at every level. Hawk said that yesterday. The lie is different at every level. And if you're in America, we're being lied to on multiple levels. If you're anywhere in the West, you're being lied to at different levels. But think about it in those terms. When you think back to March of '68, think back of how history could have recorded that incident and how we could have been embroiled in a war with China set up by the Russians at the time, at the height of the Cold War, as well as the height of the war in Vietnam and Indochina, what was taking place there in Cambodia and Vietnam and so on. And look what happened because of this. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Cambodia, speaking of Vietnam, what we're seeing in Iraq, compare today with ISIS, wholesale extermination of Iraqis, including but not limited to the soldiers, but also the Christians. This is not sectarian violence. This is not a very small issue. This is a huge issue. It's bigger. The bottom line, folks, is it's all orchestrated. We walked away. We set these people up. There was an intent there. If people say that this is administrative incompetence, they're lying. Just as much as if people would say that Benghazi was about diplomatic security. They're either lying or they're misinformed, because diplomatic security had little to nothing to do with what happened at Benghazi. It's a diversion. It's a smokescreen. It's an illusion. It's BS. So understand the bigger picture. Christians are in the crosshairs in Syria. Christians are in the crosshairs in Iraq. Christians are in the crosshairs, obviously, in Afghanistan. That's a given. In Egypt, in all of North Africa. And, Joe, remember, and I didn't talk to you about this before, and we're kind of going a little bit off script here, but talking about, remember the glee in Hillary Rodham Clinton's, remember as she gleefully stated about taking out Gaddafi. Well, that represented a certain stepping stone for what happened next. And that was, of course, to gather up the weapons and to create that Ho Chi Minh Trail of weaponry through northern Africa, from Benghazi to Derna to Misrata to all across North Africa, as written by Michael Reagan in Building on a Kernel of Truth. Go back to that article that was written in September, I believe it was September of 2012. Everything is relevant. Everything in that article that was written 2 years ago is more relevant today than it ever was. And by the way, I know for a fact that there were people, conservative anchors, the Sean Hannity types, the Rush Limbaugh types, people at Fox who says, you might tell us this, but we're not going to run with this information. It might be true, but we're not going to talk about it. It goes against the sanctity of the right-left paradigm. Think about that, folks.
Another interesting story that people were really captivated by were the flying of white flags over the Brooklyn Bridge. We received a lot of feedback on this and concern from people as to what the meaning was or reasons were for doing this. And today, a story out of the New York Post, there's a claim by a man. His name, let me get his real name here, which is at the very bottom of the article for whatever reason. His name is, well, he goes by Bud Green, or it's a play off words, Green Bud, as he is a avid pot smoker and advertises it. But he states that he was behind, it says, a wacky pro-pot activist claims he burned New York's finest by planting the notorious white flags on the Brooklyn Bridge and swears he's not just hitting the bong too hard. The title on the New York Post article, I don't even want to read it. It says, Reverend Bud Green, 49, said a group of anarchists who do stuff like this for the thrill of it emailed him after he posted on a pro-weed blog on the 4th of July asking what he could do to help his cause. The California-based weed boaster said that he hatched the plan, but 3 or 4 other guys who have backgrounds in climbing carried out the act. I came up with the idea. We were trying to shake people up. Nobody else wanted to do this, said Green, who is a member of the so-called Pot Party, which stands for People Opposing Tyranny. Green said he and his accomplices spoke briefly on the phone to hash out some of the details of the stunt. They decided the Brooklyn Bridge instead of the Empire State Building because security at the skyscraper was too tight, he claims. He waited more than a week to reveal himself because the group at first planned to climb the bridge a second time and replace the white flags with ones featuring hemp police. We wanted to put together a big media thing. We were hoping it would fade out after a couple of days, but it really shocked people, Green said, whose real name is Norm LeBeau. On July 22nd, intruders slipped past the NYPD's anti-terrorist nexus to plant bleached white flags high atop the bridge's 276-foot towers last week. And it goes on from there that several other people and groups have since claimed responsibility on social media, but have proved to be false leads, police sources said. He goes on to say that this is a political statement, although he can offer no real proof that he was the one behind this, nor can he name the associates of the men who actually planted the flag. This is the latest update in that story, which I wanted to make sure we talked about this because I did, and I don't know about you, Dad, but received a lot of feedback about different opinions and concerns about these white flags being flying over the Brooklyn Bridge and the breach of security. And my opinion was, since I heard about this happening, was if these people were going to go through the risk of breaching the security at the Brooklyn Bridge with intent to do harm, they would have done it while the breach was safe, meaning while they got through undetected, because now they're going to have a much harder time trying to do something violent in the future, and that this was just some kind of a stunt or, in your face to the police.
So what's the bottom line with this?
I don't know. There was some kind of practical joke, apparently, or some kind of statement saying, the bridge is not, New York Police Department do not have no matter how many billions of dollars they spend on anti-terrorism, because the Brooklyn Bridge is highly secured, hundreds of cameras, police, DHS people. When we remember in New York City when we go under tunnels,
sure.
You had guys in full military gear holding M16s, and this was years and years ago. It was after 9/11, but so apparently, if this gentleman's claim is true, they did it just for the thrill of it. So whether you buy that or not, I just wanted to offer an update as to.
Yeah, look, some of these things, we can classify, and people, and we respond to people who say, well, what do you think of this and that? And we must have gotten probably 4 dozen emails about these. Look, sometimes
I got at least 100.
Yeah, and I'm understating it, but sometimes we address this only because there is this curiosity out there. But let's not take it from what's really important. or from other things that are very important. But before the top of the hour here, I do want to get into something, folks, that I think is extremely important, and then we'll continue forward. Look, remember we had Butter Deaselian on not too long ago concerning the Loretta Fuddy, the death of Loretta Fuddy. Well, here's the deal, folks. I'm going to give you first an update, a verbal update via this broadcast. I'm preparing to write a series of exposés, investigative articles, to further explain this, but you're getting it first here on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. And I think this is extremely important. Everybody, and I'm just going to give a quick synopsis first, and then I'm going to get into what we found. Then I'm going to get into, very briefly, all in 10 minutes, brief synopsis, then what we found, then what happened after we found what we found, and the cooperation or lack thereof, and then what it means. So all of this in about 8 minutes. Here's the bottom line. We have long said that Barack Hussein Obama is not who he says he is. He is not constitutionally eligible to become president. People have said, well, this is a diversion. Who cares? Why should we care? Well, folks, look around. If you're not in the southwestern part of the country, well, fine. Just go to the grocery store, go to the gas pump. Just look around you and see the destruction from within of our country. That's why it's relevant. That's why Barack Hussein Obama, his identity, his agenda is important, obviously. Look at the Middle East that he has set afire along with his this renegade in chief and the other renegades as well, Valerie Jarrett, the Night Stalker, and his other band of renegade so-called diplomats and associates. So is it important who Barack Hussein Obama and Barry Soetoro is? Absolutely it is. Is it important beyond the birth certificate? Absolutely. Well, isn't it funny, or ironic perhaps is the better way of saying it, that all of the questions pertaining to Obama's birth certificate were suddenly pushed into the background during the April raid of Osama bin Laden's compound in Pakistan. Remember that. Extremely interesting. But if we go back in time a little bit, we know that it was in January of 2011 that the director of the Department of Health was replaced by Loretta Fuddy. He didn't even know why he was being replaced, but he was. Loretta Fuddy, having no medical experience, replaced the Hawaiian Department of Health director. And in so doing, and I'm giving you a very encapsulated version, folks, this will come out in detail in written form. But after having done so, Loretta Fuddy became the custodian of all identification records. That was in January of 2013. What am I saying? Or Joe, when I'm sorry, I lost my place here. My notes. I fell behind my desk here. When was the raid on the the compound in Pakistan, the Osama bin Laden raid?
Well, it's easy to lose track of where you're at when you're playing against yourself in tic-tac-toe on the board over there. And second
hey
of all,
hey now.
No, I believe it was in May.
What year?
Of 2012.
Well, let's not guess here.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's
let me search it through a search engine named Google.
Yes. Let's not use Google as a verb, and I appreciate that. I apologize for this. My seriously, all of a sudden, my entire My notes just, my hard copy notes fell behind, and I'm not going to read.
May 2nd.
Of?
2011, I'm sorry.
Okay, 2011. Here we go.
All
right.
May 1st, UTC time, depending on what you go by.
Right, May Day of 2011. Thank you for bearing with me, folks, on this. I feel kind of like an idiot when I'm talking here. All right. We have, at that time, and thank you for making sure or verifying that. But at that time, don't forget, we had all of the controversy surrounding Obama's birth certificate. Loretta Fuddy came into office in January, replacing the former Director of Department of Health, having no experience. Okay, now think about this timeline. In March of that same year, she was made a permanent Director of Health. Now she became the custodian of records. She had changed policy to make sure that nothing could go out of that department. It was under her watch that the authenticated version of the long-form certificate of live birth was done on behalf of Obama. No, you can leave those down there. I'll get them at the break. So now we've got Loretta Fuddy in the position of authenticating, or in her position authenticating this long-form certificate of live birth at a time when it was necessary, when Donald Trump was calling for it, when people were calling for it. So suddenly it was released. It was released ostensibly to the attorney for Obama, his personal attorney, who flew to Hawaii to pick up a hard copy from Fuddy, bring it back to D.C., at which time they then put up the PDF on their website. Well, guess what? Fuddy was one of 9 in an aircraft, in a small aircraft that experienced a hard water landing. Actually, it was a glide landing off the coast of Hawaii, December 11th of 2013. She was a sole fatality out of the 9. What Butter D. Zillion, internet researcher, now she's going by that name because of we know who she is. She is a fantastic researcher, but she's been getting a lot of flack, been getting a lot of harassment, so we just allowed her, fine. She can go by that name. Through your efforts, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we were able to collect enough funds to go and obtain all of the records, or ask for all of the records necessary pertaining to the strange death of Loretta Fuddy. Now, isn't it funny? Now, of course, you can go back to listen to Butter D. Zillion's appearance on our show. This is an update from that. The information that we have got is totally inconsistent with the information that we've heard. It's totally inconsistent with the official documentation. We've got documents, and we are preparing to put these up for your review that are inconsistent with other official documents. For example, and Butter D. Zillion spoke about this, there was this emergency locator transmitter that went off 4 minutes before the actual time of the plane crash. There were other oddities. There appeared to be a military operation ongoing at the very same time of the crash, or this hard water landing. There appeared to be, based on analysis of footage taken by a gentleman by the name of Puentes, who was in the aircraft, had 2 GoPro cameras that were running at the time. There appears to be additional people in the water at the time. Now, whether you believe that there are additional people in the water or not, whether you look at the images and say, oh, that's not someone different, it doesn't matter, because just like the certificate of live birth, the images, the video has been altered, has been edited. Now think about the weight of that statement. Oh, and by the way, the crash of the aircraft, or this alleged crash, or this hard water landing took place on December 11th. This man walked away, Puentes walked away without a scratch, with the video of this dramatic dramatic water landing of the plane, where the most senior official in Hawaii that was on the aircraft perished, and waited a month before even exposing or providing, making the video public. Given the technology of today, does that make sense to you? I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, if you were in a small aircraft, if you were one of 9 people, if you were one of the passengers and you had this video where one of the passengers, in fact the most important passenger in terms of public position, died ostensibly as a result of the crash, would you wait 30 days before making that video public? Does that even make sense? No. Chances are it would be on YouTube before your hair dried. So, we had, through Butter Dezillion, through her efforts, she had created a vast number of Freedom of Information Act requests, requesting everything. Today, yesterday, as a matter of fact, the requests she had received, we have received, and we have on file and on servers in different, not only in the United States but also elsewhere, and in a vault, the actual air-to-air, ground-to-air information, the dispatches. We also have the hard copies of dispatches. They're all inconsistent with each other in terms of official information. But what was denied, this was dated yesterday, July 30th, is this. We requested government records, a transcript of all communications for the 911 system and related entities with whom they were in communication between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. on December 11th, 2013. That's number one. Number two, the police incident report and other records related to the Cessna ditching on December 11th, 2013, and any follow-up communications. Supposedly, MPD mailed records responsive to that item on April 11th, 2014, but guess what? They were lost in the mail. And guess what their response was? We're not resending them. The response we got was to us, your request is for the information that I just mentioned, folks, is denied in its entirety based on the following exemption provided in Hawaii Statute 92F-13 and or 92F-22. Here is the reason, the agency justification for denial. To provide such records would amount to, and I'm quoting this now, frustration of a legitimate government function. It would reveal internal operations and the mosaic theory. Now, that's just a bunch of gobbledygook to say, we don't have to give them to you. They're essentially saying, we can't give them to you because if we do tell you what was said, it would impact, it would interfere with, it would potentially cause a problem for the way we conduct our internal operations. That is much like saying, if we give you a transcript of a court case, that would affect the way the court case is being handled. It's not true. So for the first time anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, the declining authority, her name is Lyndon Joesting, Joesting. She is the counsel for the Hawaiian Department of Health, Department of the Corporate Council for the Department of Health in Maui. The original date that we requested this was April 7th. The date that they acknowledged this was April 16th. The date of the additional request was April 23rd. The date of this notice, July 30th, was yesterday. The reason this is important, folks, is they have said, we are not going to give you the information. This is an arbitrary and capricious, in my view, ruling by Lyndon Joesting, Joesting, from Hawaii. I will be publishing a report on this because what they are saying to reveal this information would affect the security of their operations, which is entirely bogus, for lack of a better term. What we have, folks, are glaring inconsistencies related to the death of Loretta Fuddy, and at the epicenter of this is Loretta Fuddy, her custodian, being a custodian of the records of Barack Hussein Obama. And, of course, in addition to that, she was a member of the organization called SUBUD, S-U-B-U-D, which plays a very important role in this entire matter. SUBUD is a para-religious organization, or at least it's a political religious organization that's limited in membership, of which Loretta Fuddy was a part. And by the way, Loretta Fuddy's brother, who was very adamant that she had no heart problems because Loretta Fuddy reportedly died of heart failure, or an arrhythmia, more accurately, based on her fear of the water. Loretta Fuddy's brother suddenly has declined now to talk to anybody. Is this a little bit interesting? Yes. Is there something here? Yes. Is there a problem like 9/11? Yes. With the facts? Absolutely. So the bottom line is, we have information, the information that has been granted to us, to Butter D. Zillion, based on her brilliant research and requests, show that the timing is off, that what the official narrative, what the government says happened, could not have happened, that there was a military operation as well in that area at the time of this water landing, at the time of Fuddy's death. Oh, and also, based on the information we received, the autopsy report, well, that was all redacted. The entire thing was a piece of paper that was essentially a bunch of black lines. But when Butter D. Zillion requested the expense report for the doctor, the medical examiner, because the medical examiner was on a different island and was supposed to conduct the autopsy Sunday morning at 7 a.m., supposedly did conduct the autopsy at 7 a.m., there's a problem. And here's the problem. There were no flights into that island that would land before 7 a.m. Not only that, there was no billing that's customarily done, interagency billing that was customarily done, or is customarily done, to suggest that any autopsy was performed. No one's asking questions. The state of Hawaii, the face of Linda Josting, is giving the American public the proverbial middle finger when it comes to imparting the information, saying that we're not entitled to this information. That's where we're at with this. I just wanted to let everyone know. So what we're doing is we're putting together a very extensive report that will show the inconsistencies, that the official narrative by the government, the way they say it, that said it happened, could not have happened, that the video and images were tampered with, that what you saw on Nightline and other various outlets were tampered with. The entire thing is a lie. Oh, and the photographs that were used by Lang and others that were published, there were at least 2 different planes. That's been confirmed. Folks, you're hearing about this really for the first time. For a lot of this. Is it important? I believe it is, especially if you want to know who Barack Hussein Obama is, why the cover-up. And isn't it interesting that there is a trail of dead bodies, much like the Clintons, much like others, yet no answers. I hope I made sense. I did that without notes.
You did.
Without notes, so sorry.
No, you did a great job. Lots of compliments in chat, and people appreciating the information very much. But we are up against the break. We're going to take our top of the hour break. We're going to come back with your phone calls at 661. Ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of this Thursday edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this last day of July 2014. We're going to go right to the phones, right to our intelligence insider, W. He's got some points he wants to make. W, we're glad to have you on. What's going on?
Well, we'll just take a half a moment. I don't want to not let your callers get in, but I wanted to double down on what Doug and I had talked about earlier and what he spoke with the audience about with the ISIS murdering Iraqi soldiers and policemen. And one of the things that is so upsetting about this, you know, we have a lot of our guys who trained these very people. I spoke with one of my friends earlier today after I'd sent him the video, and he was very, very distraught because he's almost certain that one of the persons that he saw in one of the trucks being taken out to be killed was someone who he had actually worked with. Again, another person a couple of weeks back when we had the general that was killed said that he had had that person in his office and he had been in the general's office, and this was someone known to him as a good guy. These are people who we convinced to buy into the concept of democratization and to try to change the course of history in their region, in their nations. And they chose to be our friends and to buddy up with us and to work with us and to try and make it work. And now, with what's happening with ISIS, we think of Syria, how emphatic the White House and the NATO allies and the State Department were, that we had to go into Syria to stop the killing because of these gas weapons. And after the truth is known, a lot of the deaths are staged and weren't deaths at all. And then the gas weapons weren't by Assad. They were by FSA, the people that we were backing and promoting. And so now you have a real situation those murders that we looked at, Doug, are not staged. That's not touched up on some Photoshop.
No.
It's horrendous as it gets. You are watching crimes every bit as horrible as anything the Nazis ever did. They take guys out of the truck over to an embankment where there's already 50 guys dead, and they make them lay down there while they fire bullets into the whole crowd over and over. And if somebody wiggles a little bit, they shoot them again. And the reason those guys don't even put up any resistance, not that it would matter, is because if they do resist, they've been told that these guys will go back and find their mother, their sister, their whole family, and do every horrid thing that you can imagine and worse. And so these guys know that the resistance is futile. These are our guys. These are the guys that chose us. And we can't make enough of a scene, enough of a point. This isn't staged. The stuff in Syria was staged. It was BS. These are real war crimes against people that allied with us and nary a peep. If they can do it there to those guys, they can do it anywhere. Think about that.
What do we do? What do we do?
Change channels. You know,
really?
There's probably something on American Idol. There's something else, you know. Go golfing. It's summer, relax, enjoy. It'll all be over by the time we get back to school. They'll have something else, you know, football will be going. Don't waste dropping a dime or $1 or whatever it now costs, probably $10. Or you use money calling Washington asking them to do anything. What they'll do is send more bullets. That's what they did in the first place. Oh, well, yeah, we got to do something about this. We'll send ISIS some more bullets then.
So, as you and I spoke about, just to be clear, and it is very personal to you because one of your guys knows two. Okay. Two
different of my guys have worked with at least those guys. But you know, your audience, a lot of the guys in your audience, you know, how many guys that are missing a part of their body or their friend or their family member because they went over there to make a difference. And for what? And you know, everything that we said was bad about Saddam, okay, well, Saddam's gone. So how did these guys get in control? How did they get where they're at? They aligned with. Really. Not the bullshit story that we're told. Really. Are we going to find out 25 years from now? Oh, well, yeah, there might have been some money, and yeah, there was kind of an agreement about the weapons in those depots and the trucks and everything else. Yeah. And it can be too late then. He who writes the history, they own the story. I suspect somebody else is going to be writing the history. It won't be what we're talking about now.
Who do we blame? Seriously, who in D.C. or elsewhere? I want names. I mean, who's behind this?
Well, I mean, obviously somebody. If you remember, all the way back at Christmas time when you and I spoke, and we were very concerned and had conversations with people that were in the loop, and the word got in through the media and the questions were asked, and what was Kerry's response? Well, we're not going to intrude at this time. What did he really say? Green light, go. How did ISIS get this far along? Green light, go.
Where they stop?
Once these guys are gone, once the guys that sided with this are gone, this, you know what the crisis is really? Not even a crisis over there for us. Several times now in our lifetime, people have aligned with us, drunk the Kool-Aid, if you will, and, sided with us. And what happened? End of the game, we walked away. Just walked away. Didn't finish the job. Didn't hold the ground. What's it say as Christians? Occupy till I return. Isn't that what we were told? Isn't that what the angel told the disciples watching Christ after he'd risen? Occupy.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we do? Oh, yeah, okay. Who's got the remote? Yeah, okay, turn the channel. That's not Hollywood there. Kick your own self in the ass. Those are real people, 1,500 people. March Scott, our friends, our allies. It's that footage. Force yourself to watch it and think about it. Think about it. Our blood, our national wealth was all placed on the line, and our reputation. Allowing this to happen with no response, especially after, being all high and mighty. Talk about hypocritical. Hypocritical? A false flag. Everybody has to show up. We've got to bomb Assad. The real thing, with our real allies, where we have real interests, blood and treasure, the silence is so deafening. A 747 by your head couldn't make any more noise. Problem is, you haven't got ears left to hear with.
Yeah.
You can't even hear the screams. This is unbelievable. Every one of this audience should be leading the country, hanging their heads. Oh, my God. It's a blight, a stain on our national soul. These are the guys that sided with us, and this is what's happening to them. And you wonder what's wrong with America. Well, I couldn't get the pick right on the basketball game. I don't know which football team I should be watching right now. I have a golf game in the morning. I don't know what I can do about it. I don't know what I can do about it. I don't know. Yeah. All right. When it was Saddam, we knew what to do. When it was Saddam, we knew what we had to do.
Yeah.
When it was allegedly our World Trade Centers and somebody from over there, we knew what to do. When it's guys that our guys broke bread with, a lot of our guys went into these people's houses, met their families, broke bread with them, tried to make a difference. And all of that, I'd like to hear from the rest of your audience, only from guys that served in Iraq. Any guy that served in Iraq, tell me what you think. Am I missing the boat here?
It's a good idea.
Is the country missing the boat here? How do you feel about this? Are you just kind of upset? Where's your gut? Those guys taking a bullet to the head? How would it be if it was right here in your neighborhood, your town, where somebody sold you a bill of goods? And by the way, maybe somebody is selling you a bill of goods. But by the time you figure it out, you might have the zip ties in your hands.
Hard to top
Hands
that.
up, head down. Hands up, head down. Hands up, head down. Give me a break. Watch the video.
All right.
All right. I got to take a blood
Thank you,
pressure
buddy.
pill. All right, buddy.
You and me both. God bless.
God bless you, Debbie. Thanks.
Yeah, folks, seriously, the video that's on Waleed Shobat's site, SHOEBOT.com, that's SHOEBOT.com. It's originally posted via live leak, but it's on Waleed's site. Easy to find. It's horrific. It reminds me of if it was in black and white, and if the perpetrators instead of being Muslim were German, and instead of those being shot were Jews. This is so. Let's open the phone lines. Let's get some discussion going on this.
661-244-9839. We're going to go to area code 940 first. 940, thanks for calling in. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
All right, we're going to have to be pretty quick, folks, and please turn off your devices. When you hear your area code called, assume it's you. Okay, we just lost
our call bank.
We just lost our entire call bank.
If you're trying to call in, call back at 661-244-9839 and then press 1 to let us know that you are in queue wanting to talk to the host. Here we got another one just came up, but for whatever reason those who were in queue got dropped off. I don't know if you just have to press 1 again or if your call got cut, but give us a call back.
We only lost about 175 people. That's okay. Go ahead.
All right, 714, we're coming to you. Then we're going to go back to 940. 741, you're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hagmann, how you doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Love the show. First of all, I want to say hello to the NSA agent that is monitoring this phone call. I hope he's having a great evening. And what I want to talk about tonight is I have 3 school-age children that I am afraid they are going to be sitting next to some of these illegals that have crossed the border with the infectious diseases. And I'm just so worried about it. Federal law says we have to educate these kids, and they're going to be sitting right next to our kids.
Homeschool? Is that an option for you?
No, not really. It really isn't.
Well, every community will be touched by this, and some of the more affluent communities in particular, for reasons that, let's just say this, every community is going to be touched by this. You're going to be victimized. Your children are going to be victimized. This is by design. This is the balkanization of this country by the guy in the White House and by the renegade in chief and by the people that we have no clue who. Well, we know who they are, but we really don't know who they are. We know their agenda. We just don't know their pedigree. As I've often said, and this, by the way, is for the doctor listening, Obama is akin to a dog without the pedigree papers. So go ahead and file your complaints with the ACLU and the various other organizations. All right, sir. Yes, you're correct, though, sir. You're correct. Your children will be affected come September. And you're going to see, I think, in September, October, and even after the elections, especially after the elections, you're going to see this influx of
25-year-old students.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody have beards sitting next to my 10-year-old.
And you know what? The other part of it too is going to be this. Your children are not going to be able to. They're going to be required to be bilingual. And of course that's a big part of it. So we're going to be losing our national identity through language, through our culture, and it's a bad case all around. But your concern is noted.
Yeah, it's really sad, and I just want to say that I love you guys, and I appreciate everything you do. And it's really tough being the 3% in this country that are awake and just watching it crumble. and trying to wake everybody else, and they just, like you said, what's on TV, who's playing tonight? Let's watch Dancing with the Stars or The Bachelor. It's ridiculous.
You know what? Less than 3% or less than 3% participated in the American Revolution. Perhaps we can do that with the men and women of character, integrity, Christian faith, and values. Let's not take this as a fait accompli. Let's not think that we can't fight City Hall. We can, and let's put on the armor of God and let's fight. Caller, thank you very much for the call. We're going to move on. God bless you, my friend.
Have a great night.
All right.
God bless you.
Thanks. All right. We'll go to the next call, which I think we lost the first time when the board went out.
940.
Okay. There we go.
We're coming back to you. 940. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Nine 772. You are next in line. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi, Doug and Joe.
Good evening.
I've been listening to you guys for about 4 years now. I'm African American, and I'd like to say something to the previous caller about his kids going to school. Anoint them with oil and cover them in prayer. But, in the black community, coming up, you vote Democrat because you were raised with that mentality. But in 2007, with the primaries going on, God opened my eyes to something, and I went and changed from Democrat to independent and trying to share some things with some of the ministers and stuff in the church, and you get the pushback about, the black man and the white man, and that opened my eyes again. And it really hurts. It really hurts that so many black people that profess to be Christians could just go along with this evil. I mean, I listen to some of these people, these entities out of Washington, and I think they've been taken over. They have been taken over by that spirit. And it's not going to come through a political solution. And
you're exactly right.
I love you guys.
But you know what? Just take the race out of the equation. Forget about race and look just at the. I know what you mean with race about black people voting for someone they can relate to, but even taking that out, we've all been fooled. We've all been. There's a crime been.
Oh yes, I agree because it wasn't just the black community that got him in that seat. There had to be other races as well. But that's where I live. That's what I deal with, and
Sure.
I'm talking about the Christian's perspective. We're supposed to be following God's word. His word, it doesn't say that you know the truth and it sets you free. It makes you free. You read it and it says the truth will make you free. You locked up and you're free. And it's just amazing to watch it. It's amazing to watch the Christian community. That's where I deal with. But I love you guys. I pray for you. I will listen to you every night. And Rick Wiles, and God bless you.
Rick is great, and thank you so very much. God bless you. Thank you for listening, and thank you very much for the call. Wow.
God bless you, man.
Yeah, I don't know, folks. I'm frustrated this evening, obviously. I feel frustration. I feel very, very frustrated in my heart. And sometimes you just wonder, at what point?
Yeah.
At what point? What do you do? I mean,
there's a lot going on, in the world, within Bible prophecy unfolding before our eyes, and the wholesale slaughter of Christians, or the Christian religion, as it is here in the United States. We have not seen, and thank God, we have not seen the persecution here in the U.S. that we see abroad in the world.
Yet.
But yeah, that's the key word, yet. As Steve quoted the other night, from David Spangler, one of the head of the United Nations Planetary Initiatives. No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she takes Luciferian initiation. No one will enter the New World Order without a pledge to Lucifer. This is one of hundreds of quotes from United Nations, non-governmental organizations, IMF, World Bank, people that know what is coming, know this New World Order is here, it is being implemented, and that no Christian, no person who believes in Jesus will go without their form of punishment, which would be martyrdom in our eyes, or overcoming till the end, when the Lord returns to bring up those who are His, which then we are met, who are left alive in Him, to bring judgment on those who perpetuated this evil since the beginning of time. And we have that hope to never be wavering in our faith, to never think like things are hopeless and there's no chance for us, because this life is an illusion. The real spiritual life which we were born into, which is our eternal destiny, is real. It's all around us. Just because we can't see it right now doesn't mean it's not real. The story of Elijah is a great example of that, where Elijah was encamped by armies and shown the angels all around that were there to protect him, who called down fire from heaven to destroy these armies. That power of the Lord is not dead. It never was dead, and it will reign forever. We just have to endure a little bit so we can be refined. And once we are refined, we will be in everlasting glory with the Lord. But until then, we will see this, and we will see this continue to get worse on earth. But as I said, this earth is but a twinkling of an eye.
Well said.
Let's go to the next caller, 916 area code. 916, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, how we doing, brothers? Doug and Joe?
Pretty somber this evening, but otherwise well. What's up?
Well, I'm going to sound the shofar specifically for you, and Lord, we just thank you, Lord, that the sound of your shofar would touch Doug and Joe. In Jesus' name, Lord. Oh, yeah, guys, just stay encouraged. I've been where you guys are at, and I'm on the other side now, maybe just to bring a little bit of encouragement. And it says in Psalm 34:7 that the angel of the Lord encamps around those that fear the Lord and brings deliverance. I listened to a message last night from Steve Foss. If you guys want to just, if you Google his name, Steve Foss, F-O-S-S, he's an awesome man of God, and been able to be around him a few times. But he spoke last night on YouTube and on his channel on Facebook about the Lord's been showing him that we need to get the fear of God. You know, we talk about the love of God, but he says if you can bring the fear of God drives us to repentance. And then it says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And then in Psalm 33:5 and 6, it says that the fear of the Lord is our treasure. So, you know, it's like with everything going on a side note, I went to the Capitol today in California to go do my prayer, and the Occupy groups has come back. And I was like, I think it was about 2-3 years ago when that first started, and I just happened to go down there with my shofar, and busloads of these guys were coming out. So I sat at the corner where they were going up, and I just started saying I wouldn't want to be serving Satan, and if you're here, you better be serving the Lord. And I got to pray with the head guy. He was a believer. And I thought, what are the odds, 2 or 3 years later, that the day I go back to do some prayer today, they're going back to occupy the state capitol in California.
That's the divine intervention, I would say. Isn't that great? I want to expand on something, and thank you very much for the shofar, and also thank you for your words of encouragement. I just want to build on that. Folks, again, Greg Jackson's book, please pre-order it. Amazon.com. Please do it tonight. 40 Things to Teach Your Children Before You Die. Just to build on what this caller said, Greg Jackson writes, fear God, not man. Of course, the spirit of fear seems to prevail these days, but know with 100% certainty that God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. And isn't that where we're at?
And important part is the Lord has not given a spirit of fear, yet so many people call what we do, doom porn or fear porn. That is an issue between the believer and their Savior, because we need to reconcile what is happening on the earth and know that our hope in Him is more solid than to be fearful of what's coming upon the earth. Just because the events of the world scare you or make you fearful, that is a spiritual issue that the Lord and you need to work out, because He didn't say there wasn't going to be fearful things happening on the earth. He said do not be scared or be in fear of those things, and look up because your redemption draws nigh. Go ahead, caller.
Amen. And what I think of, Joe, is where it says perfect love casts out fear. And people will quote that, but if you don't have the love of God, the love of the Father in your heart, it's hard to get fear out of you. So I'd challenge your listeners to ask them, truly, are you serving the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength? And do you truly love your neighbor? Because if you love your neighbor, Zechariah 16:17 says this is what you should do. Go to your neighbor, speak the truth, execute judgment and truth, bring peace in your gates, and have no evil, wicked thoughts towards your neighbor. Jeremiah 1:8 through 9. Through 10. Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, says Yahweh. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth, and the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have this day set thee over nations and over the kingdoms, to root out, to pull down, and to destroy, and to throw down, to build and to plant. And we were able to go today and pray, me and the Holy Spirit, at each gate entrance at the Capitol, on the outside and the inside. And I've gotten a lot of favor with law enforcement, so I do a lot of prayer with the CHP for the favor of God to be on them. Just one couple last scriptures. Isaiah 59, verse 9. Therefore is judgment far from us, neither doeth justice overtake us. We wait for light, but behold obscurity for brightness, but we walk in darkness. I go down to 11. We roar all like bears and mourn sore like doves. We look for judgment, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far off from us. For our transgressions are multiplied before thee, and our sins testify against us. For our transgressions are with us, and for our iniquities we know them. Verse 14. And judgment is turned away backward, and justice standeth afar. For truth is fallen in the street, and iniquity cannot enter. Yea, truth faileth, and that he departeth from evil maketh him a prey. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. So what I do know, Lord Jesus, is that we're executing judgment and truth, and you said you put in Zion judgment, righteousness, wisdom, knowledge shall be the stability of his time, the strength of his salvation, and the fear of the Lord is his treasure. So, Lord, we thank you for judgment going forth, because you are the judge, you are judgment, and you're justice, and you're a great judge, and we love you. And I ask, God, you just touch all four corners of this world right now by your Holy Spirit. We ask that Zechariah 2 and 5, the fire and glory would go forth right now from this place and do great things with Doug and Joe and their family. And we thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name.
God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. God bless you. Man, that was fantastic. Okay, I just want to remind people, too, of my offer, folks, a limited time here. We have a limited number of these logos, stickers. If you go to HagmannandHagmann.com, just look at the logos there.
Four different displays. Yeah. They're all great.
And we're willing to send them out to you for no strings, free of charge. Just send me an email. That's you can find my email address at homelandsecurityus.com. Just click on the box there, click on my name, and I will get those out to you tonight after the program or first thing in the morning, one of the two. So, go ahead, Joe.
Moving on to another caller, area code 573. 573, thank you for calling in. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello, Doug and Joe. How are you all?
Very well.
Couldn't be better.
That's great. Hey, I was listening to the Hawk show tonight, and he had some discomforting news about Truman hospital in Kansas City. Did you all hear about that?
Are you talking about the Ebola?
Yes, I am. Somebody had landed from Africa, and one doctor was talking to another doctor and said he has all the. Didn't say if it was a man or a woman, but just said had all the symptoms and the signs of Ebola. That's not good in the central part of the United States.
No, actually, it's not. We also have. No, we have reports as well as, let me see here, Ebola virus pathogen, also in potentially. Now this is we I don't like to run with a lot of this because we don't have confirmation.
That's right. Nothing's confirmed. It's hearsay right now. It's just hearsay.
I'm sorry, Atlanta. Okay, yeah. There's another one in Atlanta, and then this is coming from.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. Go ahead.
Yeah,
sir.
Yeah, this was from Kansas City, and I guess the Hawk's pretty close to Kansas City area, and that's what he was saying, that he came in, or this person had came in on into Kansas City International, and then one doctor to another doctor, because I guess they're trying to figure out what's going on here. But when they say they have all the symptoms, with the eyes bleeding, out of orifices and stuff, that's not good, because you start thinking about it, where did this guy do connection flights? Because there is no direct flight from Kansas City to Africa. And so now if you flew into Chicago, you flew into JFK or Miami International, now you've got a shotgun effect of what, if this guy really has it or this individual has it, you just shotgunned it all over the United States, because you don't know where the connecting flights are headed to. And this could be very bad. I mean, I drive a tractor trailer, and if we quit, I hate to say it, if we get scared and we quit, things are going to go south real fast, because we haul a lot of stuff out here, and in 3 days, I mean, I'm not going to leave the house. I'm going home, and I'm shutting the door, because we communicate, or we are in contact with a lot of individuals, every day. And like one day I could be in South Carolina, and the next day I could be in Missouri. And see how fast that could move.
Sure.
And so you really don't know who you're coming in contact out here. And if this is true, and this is shotgunned all over the United States, well, we don't know who's been what and where, and that makes me a little nervous. And don't forget what Rick Wiles said. Rick Wiles was talking about, and I referenced this earlier, about the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, where you essentially your civil rights are toast. You as a over the road driver might not have that opportunity, might not have a choice. They might say no, you're not coming into this area, or you're not leaving from this area. It could very well be martial law. That's exactly right, and I guarantee 90% of us are not going to obey that law. We're going home. We're not going to be stuck out here somewhere for an indefinite period of time. We're going home one way or another. This truck's going home. And, so, and then once we stop, if we're we don't know. So if we stop, everything moves by truck. So they say a lot moves by rail, but do you have a train in front of your house? No. I mean, it still has to go by truck to get to the store. Yep. So you see what I mean? They think the trains can do it, but no, the trains can only go where the tracks go. So it still takes a truck. And I just hope this is false. This is not good, and I hope it's false and that it's not true. But if it is, I don't know how they could ever contact the people that was on the flight with him. I mean, because once he got into an international airport, you don't know who's what and where then. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yep. And think about what that general said to V, the guerrilla economist, on our program about a potential viral outbreak, and the plans, actually having plans for a viral outbreak or a pathogenic type of orchestrated pathogenic attack. This, according to a general that confided in V, this was on our program here not too long ago. So this is all coming down in a fashion that is eerily accurate.
Yes. I've got one other thing for you. If they know this is in Africa, and they know how contagious it is, and the was it mortality rate of 90%? Is that right? I mean, you don't, not very many live through it.
Right.
Why would the United States let anybody leave Africa and fly to the United States without being quarantined to land? Why would you even take that chance? Why would you say, "Oh, the skies are open, come on"? When you know this is this dangerous, and you know that plane's coming from Africa. Well, we've got a big ocean to separate us now, so we're surrounded by water. Okay, let's keep it that way. And why could not say, well, if anything's coming from Africa or any connecting flight was from Africa coming in the United States, we know what it is. Let's stop it. And if you do come from there, you're in quarantine for, 21 days? Okay, that ends it right there. It's not going to make it to the United States.
But you also have to quarantine the aircraft. You got to. I mean, think about that too.
Yes. Well, okay, fine. It's an aircraft. It's immaterial. Burn it. You know, it can be replaced. But I'm just saying, humans. You know, once what was the bubonic plague? How many did that kill? And that was no airplanes. You know, that was how many millions did it kill?
Yeah, but
16 million, 20 million. Yeah.
Of course, but what's the agenda of the New World Order people here?
That's them playing God, and when Jesus comes back, he's not going to be very happy. He's not. He's not coming back smiling this time.
No,
he's just not when he's got a two-edged sword and he rides the white horse in. No, he's very upset.
Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, you're exactly right, and I do pray for your safety over the road. Please be careful, and in your travels. You know,
I appreciate that very much, and God go with you all always, and always look up, because I think our redemption's near, and just ye with little faith, as a mustard seed. You know, He said that to us. Just you with little faith, walking across the water. And he says, you with little faith. And so all it takes is just a little faith. And I think that's what we need. We all need a lot of faith right now, because I think this is not looking good. And we knew this day was coming. I've listened to y'all guys for a long time, and I like your show. Y'all do a very good job. You keep me up, and I listen to your recordings, and I just think time's running out. Everything's falling together. It's God still in charge. I don't care what anybody says. He's still in charge. And when he's in charge, when he's in charge, we're along for the ride, because there's nothing we can do. And just give him the reins of the horse and say, it's yours. We're riding along with you. And I appreciate you guys. Y'all keep it up, and we'll keep the freight moving as long as we can. But I just repeat one more time. I hope this is false, but they're not going to tell us the truth. It'll have to come from out sources like you guys and Hawk and stuff to get the truth, because I've noticed that in the last 10 years.
Yeah, we've been talking with one another, and I've got to tell you, we're trying to figure out if some of these reports are in fact planted for reasons beyond truth in reporting. So that's why sometimes we don't say everything that we hear, only because we don't know. the origin. But God bless you, my friend. Thank you. Stay safe
All right.
out there.
God bless you and your son, and you all have a good evening. And I'd like to talk to you again sometime.
Oh, indeed. Call in again, my friend.
Anytime.
Right.
God bless you.
God bless you. Goodbye. Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're an extended family here, a listener, Kim, God bless her, her mom, let's say a prayer for her mom, Shirley. And she's got some medical issues, and let's just say a prayer for Kim's mom, Shirley, who's going in for some tests tomorrow for some medical issues. Again, we're all one big family, and we need to uplift everyone in prayer. And in this case, let's pray that the medical findings are in fact benign, so to speak. So that's Kim. God bless you. Shirley, God bless you. We're thinking and praying for you.
We're going to take one last call. It's an international call. We got about 4 minutes left, so we're going to try and be quick here. Country code 101. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
That me?
That's you.
Wow, I'm a different code tonight. This is Bob in Guatemala. Joe, how are you?
Fantastic, Bob. Great to hear from you, all the way from Guatemala. God bless you.
Hey, listen, this, as Doug read earlier about what they needed to declare martial law was an outbreak of whatever. It was kind of like the H5N1. They said that lots and lots of people had that virus. Yes. And when the fact came out of the matter was there wasn't very many people that actually had it because nothing was confirmed. So all they got to do is say there's, 400 people here in the U.S. that has this Ebola. They declare martial law, and the whole thing is over. I mean, like we're talking about, we need a false flag. That's an easy false flag, okay? And we don't know anything.
And see, and that's where we come out and say, now, by mentioning this, could we be part of the problem or like to facilitate martial law by saying, hey, there's a case here in Atlanta or there's a case here in Peoria, Illinois. That's why we don't come out and say these things until such time as there's been verification. So good point there, sir.
And the other thing about this ISIS, I had tried to send Steve an email one night and got this reply on my thing, something is the matter or something. It was just a really weird, I'd never gotten it from Yahoo before, okay? And it was like I couldn't send him, which was actually in reference to an article that he had posted on his website. And the article was horror, ISIS executes truckloads of Iraqis in a ditch near Tikrit. In fact, while y'all been talking to everybody else, I've been trying to get this up on off of his website. You know how many? This was back to June the 15th, and you got to go through a lot of archives to get there. At least I knew what date it was. But there's a picture on the front of that article, and the article was actually on gatewaypundit.com, and I can send you the link on this if you want me to. Can I say your email address over there? Because I don't know if I'm even sending it to the right place.
Sure. It's very simply, it's director@homelandsecurityus.com.
Okay.
That's director@homelandsecurityus.com.
Well, I will do my best to send this to you. Like I said, when I tried to send it to Stephen Hawk last time, it wouldn't go. I couldn't send it. And so it was just like, oh my gosh, they're doing this in real time now. So
yeah, I'm telling you, with our phone, I got to tell you, my friend, with our phone calls, you should hear some of the things that are taking place with our phones here in the U.S. and especially now we do converse with others in other countries, and it's a whole different what's taking place today versus a year, 2 years ago. Totally different. Mm-hmm. If you don't think they're monitoring you in real time, boy, you got another thing coming. But Guatemala, gosh, that's fantastic to hear from you.
Come on down. Hey, listen, but there's a picture on that article, and the first picture of the article has a truckload of guys, like you were talking about, hauling them off truckloads off to the ditch, and then shooting them. And so it was pretty much the same MO, but standing with their backs or their faces to this truck. I mean, and so you're seeing the back. I'm seeing the back of two heads. I'm actually seeing a profile, And what I said to Steve was, sure looks like two white boys in the foreground here on this picture, because they look like, the one guy who you can't see his face looks like a Green Bay Packer linebacker sort of guy. I'm not picking teams. I don't do that, but but it's like the other guy referring
to. I know what you're referring to, and exactly. And I think what you're intimating is perhaps that there might be something going on. Well, this was actually before that they actually revealed that we found out that we were behind ISIS, 100%, but yet I saw this picture and it's like pictures just jump out at me sometimes and it's like, oh my gosh, because remember some of the Boston mess and the marathon junk, that was kind of strange too. But this looks like some of those guys that were there. So anyway, it was just real interesting. But I'll send this to you tonight. I hope it'll get there.
Thank you so much, caller. We're out of time. God bless you.
God bless you all.
We'll look forward to that email. Thank you for the call. Until tomorrow night, folks, we'll be back here 8 p.m. For our first show in August. We hope to see you all here. Thanks to the callers, the listeners, for all your prayers and support, letters, uplifting letters and messages. We cannot thank you enough. We are so blessed to have you guys. And until tomorrow, stay safe. We'll see you then.